Welcome in to the Late Night Gamecock Show. I'm your host, Matt Anderson, and joining me as always is Alex Jones of thebigspur.com. Alex, how are we doing tonight?
Doing good. No, you came out. We got here just on time, pretty much. We had to back it up about 15 minutes, but hey, we're here. Perfect timing.
Hey, look, when you gotta travel around the great state of South Carolina, sometimes you're hauling tail, busting it in here for even an 8:15 start time. But we hope that it's not going to be 8:15 going forward, guys and gals. So we do apologize for that. Looking at the Gamecocks right now, Alex, virtually every ranking I can find has the Gamecocks comfortably in the top 15. If you look at the AP, it's 11, 10th in the coaches, 14th in ESPN's power rankings, and 16th in CBS's power rankings. So while it is true, the Gamecocks have probably underachieved for the preseason, what was it, top 13 ranking? They're probably right about where they need to be at this point in most rankings. Gamecocks did pick up a commitment from Caden Ramsey. We're going to be talking about him a little bit longer, or a little bit later on and a bit longer. That brings South Carolina up to 243 points in the 24/7 Sports recruiting class composite calculations, however they do that, Alex, which is good for 18th in the country. So 18th is fine. If you look at it from a per player basis, 14th best class in the country, that's just fine. A blue chip ratio that sits at 62.5%, that's elite. And then it's only 16 commitments. Alex, we're not going to spend a lot of time here right now, but do you think this class gets more than 20 total pledges?
Potentially. Kind of just depends on how some things go, maybe with flips. I mean, obviously, just quickly, obviously Julian Walker was in this past week in the 4-star edge from Dutch Fort that's committed to Michigan. He was in this past week for the game. Then obviously you got Tamarian Watkins still out there, a bunch of guys that they're still in on to see what they can do. So we'll see. I still think it's going to be in that 20 range for what the final number.
Yeah.
How many players have in the class?
Alex and I are going to talk a little bit more about where the Gamecocks stand both offensively and defensively through two games. We touched on that on Rooster Rant, but I know everyone doesn't get a chance to watch the Sunday night show. So we're not going to regurgitate the same stuff, but we will talk a little bit about where the Gamecocks are. We got a big game this weekend. Vanderbilt is coming to Williams-Brice Stadium, 7:45 first kick. And we're going to have Robbie Weinstein of Vandy 24/7 on at 8:30 to talk about what he feels about the game, tell us more about Vanderbilt. I'm sure Alex and I both have a number of questions for him. If you guys and gals have any questions, make sure you put those in the comments for Robbie here in a little bit. But Alex, how about you go ahead and start the intro video, and we'll get right into the show.
Gonna turn on the late night show. Hear what's going down in Cooltown. I said I'm turning on late night show. Yeah, my cots will let me down.
Well, Alex, that beat hits just right every single time. Alex, let's jump right in. Gamecocks picked up a commitment from tight end Caden Ramsey. I'll tell you what I know about him. Alex can fill in the gaps and talk about the recruiting aspect of it. Three-sport athlete in high school, plays basketball, football, and runs track. Actually plays wide receiver and safety for his high school. So he knows he's going to have to add weight at South Carolina, but the coaching staff saw something in him over the summer that let them pull the trigger. They backed off some other tight ends. And Alex, you tell me if I'm wrong, he's kind of been the tight end in the crosshairs for the Gamecock coaching staff past couple months.
Yeah, they moved on him pretty quickly with an offer. in the summer, and things have been trending in a good way for South Carolina for a long time with him, and then ultimately he decided on Monday. Just a guy that you mentioned the size. 6'5", 203 pounds, like a guy that I think when you think about what he can do once he gets into the weight room and in the nutrition program at South Carolina, like he's a guy that you can see being a mismatch type of guy from the slot, a guy that can do some inline tight end stuff, but also in the red zone, get in there and do some things, kind of like you see from Michael Smith early on and guys like that. So I think it's a really intriguing pick of a guy that's really productive at Cross High School. Had 13 interceptions last year, which just kind of shows playmaking ability. Kind of tracking the ball, stuff like that. So it kind of just feels like it's going to be another one of these guys from South Carolina, those under the radar guys who don't get all the offers out there in the world, but a guy that ends up panning out.
Yeah, I think he's a no-brainer type take, especially as a second tight end in a class when you have a little bit of roster flexibility year in and year out with the transfer portal. I think that you take every one of these type of under-the-radar players, but he has been on the Gamecocks radar for quite some time. TheBigSpur.com has a handful of articles, a handful of message board posts regarding him. He's been featured in the VIP. Should not be a new name for any Gamecock fans. Alex, I saw that Hale posted on the Big Spur recently that you got Landon Duckworth, Keenan Britt, KJ Johnson, Caden Ramsey, and Tristan Lewis as commitments scheduled to be at the Vanderbilt game this upcoming weekend. Looking at it, it looks like some 2027 kids: KJ Green, Frederick Ards, Antoine McCoy, Jaden Kelly Murray. I guess it's Kion Smith in 28. And then you have Jordan Gorham and Elijah Mitchell. You don't have to please don't go into great detail on all of those names, but any surprising names on that list for you?
I wouldn't say surprising. Like KJ Green's a guy that has been really high on South Carolina for a long time. A guy that's a high 4-star edge from Georgia. Obviously, you're going to have to battle Georgia, Alabama for him, but he's been really building a really good strong relationship with Sterling Lucas and those guys. And he was in Atlanta for the game against Virginia Tech, and now he's coming back down to this game. So it's definitely one that they're right in the middle for. Obviously, the in-state wide receivers, Jaden Kelly Murray's the guy that's really good from Somerville High School, and it's I think they've kind of got on him early, and we've seen how that's turned out for South Carolina when they get on guys early. And then talk about getting on guys early from an in-state perspective. Like, Jordan Gorham's a 2028 guy, and they offered him this summer at a camp. So, obviously there's a lot of interest there. So, and Frederick Ards is another one that's really intriguing too. That I think it's going to be intriguing to watch. So that list will obviously continue to grow. There'll be guys that show up and continue to pop up on that list. But, for right now, I think as you can imagine with a 7:45 game, kind of one of these primetime games is going to be a pretty good recruiting list.
Yeah, and one of the things that I wanted to make note of, Landon Duckworth did make a visit to LSU this past weekend. I think it's a really good sign that he's coming back to South Carolina this weekend for the Vanderbilt game. It's not something that I think that the coaching staff was taken surprised by, his visit to LSU. And on top of that, Alex, everything that I've heard behind the scenes is that really don't worry too much, but I'm a worrier, Alex, until the national letter of intent, the scholarship paperwork's been signed, the final NIL number is met. I'm not saying that for Landon Duckworth, just in general. But thoughts on that, Alex? How much concern should Gamecock fans have right now?
Yeah, still sounds like everything's good for South Carolina. It's good that he's getting back into the visit, and we'll see kind of what happens from there. But I think even before there's been communications with the staff about the visit and all, going on to LSU and all that, and the communication has stayed tight, and that's always a good sign for not just South Carolina but anything in the recruitment, because if communication would have gone dark, that would have been probably a bad sign on South Carolina, but that has not happened at all, and still feel really good there.
Yeah, absolutely. Alex, before we get to Robbie, who's coming on from Vandy 24/7, around 8 o'clock tonight, the injury report. I don't know. Is this a debut thing? Is this the first time it's ever come out on a Wednesday, or did this happen last year too, Alex?
No, they did this last year too.
Okay. So, Alex, I'm going to run through it really quick. We'll get some thoughts on it. For South Carolina, the probable players are Vakari Swain, Brandon Cisse, and Jaquel Holman. Doubtful, defensive back Judge Collier, tight end Brady Hunt. And then those are the only names for South Carolina. We'll ask Robbie here in a little bit about the names for Virginia or not Virginia, Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt. Alex, were you surprised by this? I know that Shane kind of went seesawing a little bit, just probably emotionally coming off the loss, not knowing where the injury situation was for the players. And then, what was it, a couple days ago, saying that he felt pretty good. It came out better than we thought.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest name I was kind of tracking to see who, if for sure playing yesterday, would have been Brandon Cisse, just because he got banged up in that game. And Judge, I was probably just kind of leaning towards he wasn't going to be in this game. But from Cisse, I think that's obviously he's listed as probable, so it's not like official 100% that he's going to be in the game. But obviously things are trending in a good way, and that's huge just because they're going to need him at that cornerback spot, especially with Collier being out in this one. So. I mean, I think that's one that is huge just because and we'll talk about this with Robbie, but, Vandy's receivers have had some success early on. And so I think, from an overall standpoint, I mean, Bakari Swain, obviously I think he just went out after that second punt return and probably could have been one where he would have just kept playing in that game. The same with Jalen Kilgore too, like not being in that game. So he wasn't on that list, but that's obviously a good sign too there.
Yeah, I think with Judge Collier, I truly, in my heart of hearts, think this is a true game time decision. I think that he's making progress. Would not surprise me to see him play, but you just don't want to hurt yourself further, and that's the battle I've been told they're fighting right now. But outside of that, Alex, we got a little bit until Robbie comes on, so let's go ahead and hit our sponsor break, and we get back. We'll see when Robbie pops in.
Morning, Carl. Usual?
Yeah.
Your oldest was in here the other day. Said the two of you took a trip down to my neck of the woods. How'd that go?
You might as well give me one of those Carolina cars while you're at it.
I knew I liked that one.
Yeah.
There you go, my friend.
Thanks.
Hey, Carl. Congratulations.
See you tomorrow, Freddie.
You bet.
JC Sherbert here had a brilliant idea that some good friends of mine in Florence have told me about. Next time you're having a wedding or an event or anytime you got to feed a bunch of people, talk to my friends over at Flavortown Eats and Events. That's right. It's a food truck / trailer, prepares the food fresh on site right there for you. No hassle. It's absolutely delicious. They'll come out, turnkey solution to feed the masses at your event. Go to their website right now. flavortownflow.com. That's flavortownflow.com. They have all the contact information you need, and they are a proud sponsor of the Late Night Gamecock Show and the Chief Sports Network.
Welcome to Palm Casual Patio Furniture. Because we are the factory, Palm Casual has the ability to offer the highest quality outdoor furniture paired with world-class service. Since 1979, our factory showrooms have done our best to make the buying process as easy as possible for our customers. Our understanding of the many factors that go into your decision has helped us create our 30-day trial period that increases the level of comfort our customers feel during the shopping experience. Visit us in Somerville, Mount Pleasant, Myrtle Beach, and Bluffton, and online at palmcasual.com for our products and out-of-state locations. Go Gamecocks!
This is the Late Night Gamecock Show with the pride of Hampton County, Alex Jones. And with the king of late night, Matt Anderson. Go Gamecocks!
Welcome back into the Late Night Gamecock Show. Any minute now, we're hoping to have Robbie pop in from Vandy 247. But I did look in the chat box, and I see Queen's asking about Jaylen Brown. Look, there's nothing wrong with Jaylen Brown at all. It's nothing wrong about his happiness in South Carolina, anything like that. But I don't expect him to play this year, and I'm just not going to talk about it. And it's not. I'm just stressing it's not a bad thing. It's just something that I wouldn't want someone to talk about me about is all.
And to the point on the injury report, like guys who are going to be already known out for a while, they don't have to be listed on the injury report. It's basically like a depth chart type of thing. So, and one note that I kind of didn't pick up on was that Jatius Gear was not listed on there at all, which would point to meaning good to go. Same for Jalen Kilgore, which I think is huge.
Yeah, Shane will, I guess, get asked about that tomorrow night on Carolina Calls in some form or fashion. But we have Robbie in. So, Robbie, Alex will let you in and we'll start this conversation. Hey, Robbie, how you doing?
Hey, guys. How's it going?
Good. So, happy to have you. My name is Matt Anderson. We've never met, but Alex says great things about you.
Thanks. Yeah. Are we live or?
We are live. This is live, my friend.
Yeah. I mean, so I've been at 24/7 from, I think I started back in 2020. And so I've gotten to know like John Whittle a little bit from the Big Spur. I only met Hale like once, I'm pretty sure, at a Vandy, South Carolina game, but I've followed from afar and I used to work pretty closely with Brad Crawford. So I'm definitely familiar with the Big Spur and all that.
Absolutely. Well, real quick, what's the Vanderbilt fan base like right now, Robbie? What is it? Just over the moon excitement because you kind of had that breakthrough season last year, and now just looks like the sky's the limit.
Yeah, I mean the fans are excited. I think everybody knew coming into the season, if you followed what they did with their roster, what they brought back closely, they were going to be a perfectly competitive, competent team, but they might be better than that. I think that's possible. Nobody really expected what happened in that Virginia Tech game to happen. I mean, the first half, honestly, I did think, they kind of in the first half, it looked to me like a team that made some mistakes and was more talented than the opponent and thus was down by 10. But I mean, the 300-yard advantage in the second half on the road against a Power 4 team, that just does not happen. That has never happened in the modern history of Vanderbilt football. And so I think everybody, it seems like both the fans and the media, honestly, at this point, it's kind of looking around like, whoa, this team might be quite a bit better than any of us thought.
Yeah, what did you see in the second half from Vanderbilt? Obviously, being down 10, like the adjustments were just something. Because I remember, obviously, with South Carolina State and South Carolina game going at the same time, I was kind of keeping an eye on it. But look down, and Vanderbilt just completely had taken over that game. What did you see in the second half?
Everything came together, really. I think on offense, that what kind of stands out there is when Vandy gets going, they can be pretty clinical just because there's so many different options on that offense. And you've got a decision maker in the quarterback, Diego Pavia, who, consistently makes the right reads. He's very accurate as a passer. And then as a runner, I mean, he's fast enough and certainly very physical and hard to bring down. So everything was clicking. Their O-line has definitely improved. Defensively, they kind of brought everyone back from last season, but they changed. Clark Lee is not the defensive coordinator anymore, and so there were some questions related to that. And I mean, they look a lot different. They look a lot more aggressive. Virginia Tech was down multiple starting offensive linemen in the second half, but I don't think that completely explains it because in the first half, the issues were that Vandy's linebackers were not reading the Kyron Drones designed runs correctly, and they were not in the gap. They fixed that, and all of a sudden, Tech can't move the ball anymore. So, I mean, it was just a perfect storm, and I would be surprised if Vandy plays that well again the rest of the season. I mean, that was pretty crazy, but I didn't think they had that in the tank, to be honest with you. I thought they were a good team, but that was kind of crazy.
Robbie, on that note, you've been covering Vanderbilt, like you said, for a number of years now. Is that something you're seeing more and more out of Vanderbilt? Because we've always felt that Vanderbilt's top 22 could hang with anybody in the SEC for some amount of time. Alabama, except for last year, is eventually going to out-talent most teams in the SEC.
Yeah.
But that top 22, you have the players coming back, but are you seeing more adjustments being made? Because we know Clark Lee has a defensive background. Have you seen that kind of emerge for Vanderbilt, or was that something you weren't expecting against Virginia Tech?
I do think what showed up against Virginia Tech is what they did in the offseason is, they've got way more money than they've ever had before, right? Because now schools can pay out to the entire athletic department, $20.5 million, and the football's not getting all of that, but they're getting a good portion of it. And so the playing field has never been more even for Vandy from a financial standpoint, they were really slow to pick up on NIL. Didn't do a good job with that until the 2024 season. And what they did with it is they don't have a lot of star power other than Diego Pavia and Eli Stowers. And I think it was going to be difficult to recruit elite transfers there, like South Carolina or other SEC programs can do. So they loaded up on crazy depth, and they're able to rotate guys through where there's not really much of a drop off, especially on defense between their starters and their backups on the front seven. I think they played 12 defensive linemen against Virginia Tech, and those guys were all players who we saw in fall camp are competent. They played, a group of 5 schools that, they had a guy, Mason Nelson from Western Michigan, who I thought would be one of their better defensive tackles, who he's not even in the rotation right now. And so what they've done, I thought that really showed up against Virginia Tech, is like what they've done is they do not have the top end talent for the most part, but what or future first round picks. They don't have a Dylan Stewart. But their depth is like very competitive. It's by far the deepest Vanderbilt team that I've ever seen. And I think a lot of that just has to do with the current state of college football in terms of their ability to go out and like buy guys from the transfer portal, just like everyone else.
Well, I think there's also that flexibility you have as a play caller on the defensive side of the ball, because you know that you're not having to hide one of your 11 guys because you can't run this play. So that's a big thing for Vanderbilt, I think.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. They had another, unusual thing that happened to them is they brought in 2 corners, veteran corners, redshirt senior type of guys from the transfer portal for the 24 season. And one of them, Mark Davis Jr., tore his Achilles in the summer, and the other, Marlon Jones, was diagnosed with cancer. And so they both missed last season, which you were expecting them to possibly be starters for you. And now they're back, and it's like, oh, okay, Vandy has never covered. They can't cover anyone during Clark Lee's first 4 years. And now it's like your backup corners or 5th-year seniors who were high 3-star graded transfers. It's very atypical for Vanderbilt. And I agree, it does open up the playbook because, they weren't able to call aggressive blitzes as much in the past because they just couldn't cover on the back end at all.
Yeah, watching that Virginia Tech game, the thing that really stood out was the play on the line of scrimmage on both sides. Right? And I think that was a spot in the transfer portal that Vanderbilt really attacked. What kind of stood out about that both lines of scrimmage in that game? Because that really kind of caught my attention.
Yeah, I think the offensive line is like the biggest and most talented that I've seen from Vandy. They did not click in fall camp. They did not click against even Charleston Southern. They committed a ton of penalties in fall camp. And they're actually in the first 2 actual games, they committed a lot of penalties too, but you're starting to see a group that it's like, oh, Vandy's not just keeping guys out of the backfield. They're able to clear some holes. And I'm pretty sure Cedric Alexander, the starting running back, he's a good player, but I think he averaged something like 3.6 yards per carry last season, because he's getting hit at the line of scrimmage. Their offensive line was not very talented. You guys saw it in that Vandy South Carolina game last year. It was a joke. Right? Like the defensive line for South Carolina against Vandy's O-line last year was total complete mismatch. And maybe, it's possible that Carolina will still thoroughly win that matchup again this season. I don't know. But for sure, Vandy got a lot bigger, a lot more experience. Like they've got a starting right tackle, essentially. They flip the sides sometimes, but who's 6'8", 325. Bryce Henderson, the guy who was talking crap this week a little bit, who is from a really good FCS program in South Dakota and has played multiple years, had good PFF grades, and it's very strange to see. Honestly, I'm used to seeing just terrible O-line play from Vandy, and they look at worst competent and at best pretty decent. It's sort of odd to see.
Well, South Carolina would take competent right now.
Yeah.
South Carolina fans are not very happy with their offensive line. So you're probably the closest person to the Vandy program I'll ever be able to ask this question to. Diego Pavia had some interesting comments about South Carolina that actually left Gamecock fans a little perplexed when he said the game he had circled on his calendar was South Carolina. And as South Carolina fans would, they started trying to figure out why. Like, did someone say something bad about his mother last game? Was there something deeper there? Was it this was the game where they felt if they got to 3-0, then big things would happen the rest of the way? Has Diego ever gave any comments on why the South Carolina game is very important to him?
He hasn't. I honestly, I'll push back a little bit. I was confused as hell by the fans' reaction to that. They got their teeth kicked in by South Carolina last year, completely embarrassed at home. I think Vandy entered that game as a top 25 team, so there's a little more attention on them. And they just got pantsed and completely out physical. If I were on Vandy, I would, want to play a lot better and win the return game the next season. I think that's all it is. Interestingly, it has become, right, like, you can't predict whether Vandy was going to beat Virginia Tech or not. But, it was a 2.5 point spread and they were the underdog. It has probably become a bigger game than a lot of people expected just because the winner is definitely going to be in the top 25 for sure. But I think it was just about, that was an embarrassing loss for Vandy last year, and South Carolina totally earned it. And Clark Lee has said that Carolina kind of beat us at our own game, is what he said. Basically, they totally out-physicaled Vandy and just, ran away with that game. And I think Vandy was disappointed with themselves and how they played. I think they played kind of soft in that game. They couldn't tackle anyone. So that's probably where that comes from, I think.
Yeah, and look, we kind of laughed about it, just saying, like, that's a compliment. They're circling South Carolina. You know what I mean?
I have a lot of respect for South Carolina. I do. I think there's obviously Tennessee is their rival, and they really don't like Tennessee. But from what I've gathered, I think they have a lot of respect for the South Carolina program, and that goes all the way up to the head coach.
Well, you'll also know that Gamecock fans can be very petty when it comes to things they take offense to. So, but no, I was just interested in that. As Gamecocks and people that follow Gamecock sports, we know about Eli Storrs. We know about Trey Richardson. We know about Diego Pavia. Who are some guys on the offense and defense that South Carolina fans should be circling to say, okay, this guy is an X factor?
X factor. They've got a true freshman named Caleb Barnett, who is like, I think he's listed at 5'8". He's not. He's like 5'6", 155 pounds. And he ran like a 10.3 or 10.2 something 100 meter in high school. And what they've been using him as, I thought he was going to redshirt because if you play at 155 pounds in SEC, you're going to get injured. But what they've been doing is they've been using him as bait, basically. In the first game, they gave him a couple pop passes on like jet sweep action. He took one of them to the house. And then against Virginia Tech, they put him on the field and they basically faked that and got the backup tight end wide open for a 50-plus yard touchdown where there wasn't anyone near him. So I don't know if Caleb Barnett is going to get the ball much on Saturday. Maybe he will. But he's a guy who I would think they're going to put on the field, and he's going to draw everyone's attention because he's the fastest player probably on the field. And he's somebody that I would say probably watch him, because if he's there, Vandy is trying something, whether that's giving him the ball on like an end around or using him as a decoy. They're up to something, I would say, if he's on the field. And then defensively, I would throw in Miles Capers in there. He's from South Carolina, actually. He's an edge rusher for them who has gradually gotten better over time. And he is close to being their best defensive player, actually.
Kind of through these two games, like what position group has surprised you the most in a good way?
In a good way. Probably, the wide receivers were really subpar last season, I thought, and that definitely showed up against South Carolina. It showed up against even Auburn. I remember I was at the Auburn game, and they're trying to chuck the ball downfield, and Pavia went like, I want to say 8 for 21, and he wasn't making bad throws. It's just his receivers are covered, and he's having to, try to throw these crazy back shoulder fades that aren't going to get completed, or he has to throw it away. And so they tried to improve their wide receiver room through the transfer portal. I think that was a little difficult. They missed on a lot of top targets because other SEC teams that throw the ball more and have more history as a program and maybe more money were able to beat them for some targets. Like Isaiah Satania now at Oklahoma was someone who they really wanted. And so, they got a great scouting find in Trey Richardson, who you mentioned. He transferred up from D2, and he's really good. He's not just a fast guy. He knows how to play wide receiver. Junior Sherrill was their leading wide receiver last year, and he has gotten better. He's dealing with a little bit of a knee injury, but he played all right against Virginia Tech. So I think, they wanted to, with Pavia, they wanted to surround him basically with a better supporting cast. I don't think the talent around around him other than Stowers was very good last year. And so wide receiver and offensive line were two ways for them to do that. And I think they did a better job than I expected, especially given that, again, it's still Vandy. And I think that it's still going to be tough for them to win transfer portal battles against programs like South Carolina that, just won 9 games and had a great season. They need more success in order to consistently win those battles. So they still kind of got to win on evals.
Kind of watching Vanderbilt last year, obviously Pavia would take his shots at times, but it feels like this year through 2 games, they're more keen on taking those one-on-one shots with Richardson and those guys. Do you feel that's kind of more happening so far? They're more willing to take those shots to help open up Stowers in the middle and things like that?
Yeah, I think that's exactly what it is that I think they want to open up the run game as well as Stowers for sure. Stowers last year, there were some games where he didn't really do anything because he's just blanketed all game and defenses knew, this is the threat, right? I think they're somewhat interested in creating more explosive plays just because that's a good thing. But I think in general, they still want to be a run heavy offense and they got to clear the box out a little bit more. I mean, opponents were stacking the box big time last year. And I think they're still going to do that until Vandy sort of proves, gives a reason why you shouldn't be doing that. So I think that's probably part of it, why they're trying to be a little bit more aggressive because, on top of that, Pavia got hurt against Kentucky. And I think as well, South Carolina had pressure on him all game and he eventually got hurt in that game too. If he goes down, your season's over. And so I think they're trying to have a better tailback run game. And in order to do that, they need to, get the box a little bit lighter.
And South Carolina, ditto. They need to get that box a little lighter as well. One of the things that Shane Beamer obviously prides himself on, his dad prided himself on, is special teams. Special teams have been electric for South Carolina so far with a blocked punt, 3 punt returns for touchdowns. Tell me a little bit about Vandy's special teams as far as your punter goes. Is he a boomer? How much confidence is there? I could easily see this game coming down to a field goal at the end. So just talk a little bit about Vandy's special teams.
Yeah, they. I don't think they're as good as last season. The computers that track special teams efficiency had them top 5-ish in the country last year. I think that would be pretty difficult because they've taken sort of a half step back at punter. They got another Australian guy, and his name is Nick Haberer. He's good, but the last 2 punters they had who were also Australian were like NFL good. So that is a little bit of a step back. He does have a good leg, but I don't think he's as consistent as the previous 2 were. Martell Height is still returning punts for them. He's very good. He's probably not as good as Vicari Swain, but he is a good punt returner. He returned 1 for a touchdown last year. Junior Sherrill is still returning kickoffs, although we'll see if that keeps up with the knee. And he returned a kickoff for a touchdown against Tennessee last season. They tend to be pretty aggressive with playing starters on coverage units. And so I think that, Vandy historically, like your backups aren't as athletic, not even close to, Georgia, Tennessee, South Carolina. And so they started playing more starters, and I think that has helped them on coverage units. And then the kicker, Brock Taylor, has really deep range, like to almost 60. So their special teams are a strength. I wouldn't say, I know that obviously South Carolina has long been known for elite special teams too. So I think the Gamecocks probably have the edge there, but it is a team that plays good special teams for sure.
That's kind of that's what I was wondering. Because Brock Taylor's 10 of 11 on extra points. I can look at the box scores all day, but just a missed extra point.
He missed an extra point last year too. I wouldn't say he's the most consistent in the world on shorter kicks, although he did make something like 16 straight to end last season. But field goals, rather than extra points. But he made a 57-yard field goal against Mizzou last year. I think he could go a little bit further than that if he needed to.
Yeah, with South Carolina right now, the fans are basically saying, well, they know about Vicari Swain, and a lot of them are just learning about his potential as a punt returner. But on top of that, it is 2 freshmen or first-year punters and kickers for South Carolina. If there are some weaknesses that South Carolina fans should be looking to attack in the game? Where do you think the weaknesses are for Vanderbilt on both offense and defense?
Well, I think they've done a good job of, even though their strengths are not crazy strong, they have a lot fewer weak links than they've really ever had. I came into the season thinking their safeties could be an issue. Both the starters last year were pretty solid and graduated. So they've got a true sophomore transfer from FAU starting in CJ Hurd, who has had a good start to the season. And then a redshirt senior named Marlon Sewell, who had been a career backup, and he kind of got the chance to go start. I just sort of question Virginia Tech may not be very good, right? So I just think they're going to get more of a test this week because, Lenore Sellers is, I think, a significantly better passer than Kyron Drones. So maybe Carolina could test the safeties deep a little bit, especially because Martell Height, Vandy's top corner, he is now splitting time and also playing wide receiver. They thought maybe their wide receivers wouldn't be as good as they are, and so they were going to try to play him over there a little bit. So if he's off the field, then maybe that gives you an opportunity against backup corners who are still good for backups, but not as good as your starters. And then the safeties are young for sure, or at least like inexperienced in terms of starting reps. So that would be one. And then I still think there's some issues with the O-line in terms of pass pro. There's lots of holding penalties. So especially at tackle, I think they've, got a little bit to prove there that Henderson is a very good run blocking tackle. And, he's the one who's chirping this week. Like, I don't know that he's a great pass protector. He didn't really show that at the FCS level. And I think he's a little stiff. So that could be, an area, not just Dylan Stewart, but like Brian Thomas Jr., might have some opportunities. On the other side, though, Vandy's going to try to account for that. But I do think that is a potential weakness.
Okay. Alex, any more questions for Robbie before we let him get out of here?
No, I mean, I think we've kind of gotten a lot of the keys to this game. What do you think your keys to the game for Vanderbilt would be, kind of on both sides?
Yeah, probably like on offense, protect Pavia and / don't, hold every single play. Defense, it has to be contain the quarterback run, whether that's designed or scramble. I think they really did not do a good job against Drones doing that in the first half of the Virginia Tech game. So we'll see if there's something to that in terms of, are there athletic limitations that I wasn't expecting, or is it just, you got to get in the film room and just play better, basically. I'm not really sure, but I can't get that play out of my head from last year where, Vandy had Sellers sacked, right? And this was 7-0, and maybe you've got a chance to get off the field and get some momentum in the game. He shrugs off Corday Sidner, who's one of Vandy's better players, and unleashes, that great pass downfield that just totally changed the game.
That was a huge momentum swing.
Yeah. I mean, and that should be on his NFL draft tape, even though it was in 2024. Just awesome play. Like that, they gotta, if you don't get them down in that situation, at least you gotta be able to, maybe force him to throw the ball away or something. They cannot let him hurt them with his legs.
Well, Robbie, we really appreciate you being here. If we can ever return the favor for anything you need for us, let us know. Before I say goodbye to you tonight, do you have a prediction for the game that you're willing to share this early?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a really interesting game. I think based on the tape this season, I think Vandy is better, but I think that's only 2 games. And I also think we've seen how this series goes. It's on the road, and Carolina, I just feel like is going to play a little bit better. So I've got Carolina 24-23.
I'm right there with you. You could flip the score either way, honestly. I do see some areas South Carolina could do something they haven't shown so far. We've seen in the past, but so far this season that could exploit Vanderbilt. But until I see it, it's hard to take seriously.
I hear you. Yeah, this is the most interesting Vandy South Carolina game I can remember going in, because I think both these teams possibly could make a run. Whoever stays undefeated longer and can start playing their best ball, basically.
Well, will you be in Columbia for this game, Robbie?
I will not, unfortunately. I couldn't make it, but it's on my list. I wish I could have, because I need to see Sandstorm at some point.
Well, anytime you're our way, just let us know. Any sport, we cover it all. So. Sure, we're happy to have you on again and meet you in person, buy you a drink, some dinner. It'd be fun.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Robbie.
Thanks, Robbie. All right. Well, again, we appreciated our Virginia Tech insider coming on before that game. We definitely appreciate Robbie coming on tonight. Alex, let's talk quickly about this game because I thought Robbie brought up some good points. It is a team with Vanderbilt that has more depth. I think we all agree that Clark Lea has proven to be a pretty good coach in the SEC, given his limitations with the roster build. But South Carolina is going to have to do a number of things to win this game, Alex. So what are some of your keys before we move on to our best bets and get out of here for the night?
Yeah, I think, well, let's start defensively. I think it's kind of just continue to do what you've been doing for the most part. And, if it is that Cisse is going to be healthy, I think that's a big key in this game just for what Vanderbilt's going to try to do. I think defensively, there's going to be some 50-50 balls that they're going to throw up there. You've seen Diego Pavia be confident in doing that. And they got the receivers. I mean, Trey Richardson, we talked about on there as guys that's going up and made some plays. So, make some plays on the 50-50 balls. And you got to contain both defenses are going to have to contain the other team's quarterback because, kind of what we talked about with drones going into that game. If you're rushing and you get out of your rushing lanes, he can take one of those lanes and go and make it a 15-yard gain or 20 or more. So I think defensively, just kind of keep doing what you're doing. And the biggest key defensively, I think, is to keep Vanderbilt behind the chains. Because if they're getting to that first and second down and they're third and three or short, like they're really good at staying on the field and getting and converting third downs on. So I think getting off the field is going to be key because Vanderbilt's just really good at staying on the field and converting those third downs. Offensively, I think it's just kind of open things up a little bit more. I'm going to be interested to see what the run game with Sellers looks like if they implement a whole lot more of that because, I was kind of saying this a little bit earlier today, when you watch Lenore Sellers from what we've seen so far, when he gets into an early rhythm with some of those quick throws, some of those tight end, in the flat throws or just quick throws or anything in the run game, it really helps his rhythm and I think kind of gets him into the game. So that first drive, I think first few drives going to be key to kind of get his confidence up with some short throws. And then I think you want to try to attack downfield a little bit more. It feels like, when you're watching some of those linebackers, some opposing teams are kind of sitting up there in the box kind of early on to kind of stop that run game. So try to back those linebackers off and just get. I think the biggest key is just get Lenoris and Sellers and all those guys, get those guys confident early on.
Yeah, and one of the things that I noticed on the rewatch of the South Carolina State game, South Carolina State had a lot of success on play actions. I watched the linebackers get sucked in a good number of times. And I understand, especially when you're going against a play action RPO type offense, your first move almost has to be in because if you're not taking a step towards the line of scrimmage, you're already at least a half second to a second behind. But just if the linebackers can find a way to diagnose these plays, sniff some stuff out, I feel pretty confident that Clayton White's going to have a good game plan there. But continue to take care of the ball on offense for South Carolina. They have no turnovers so far this year. We know it was a point of emphasis for Shane all off season, but by not turning the ball over, it also leads to my next key. I think you really need to try and own the time of possession in this game. Yeah. I really think that you probably need to push for 35 minutes, maybe more, because Vanderbilt relies on explosive plays and the more opportunity for them not to have the ball and kind of kill you with 1,000 paper cuts and then, drop that explosive run or that explosive pass on you. That's going to be huge for South Carolina. I continue to go back to the game last season, Alex, where Diego Pavia was kind of becoming a household name. And that defensive line, Robbie talked about it. It was a butt whooping. And they made life on Pavia very, very difficult. So I think, continue to make life tough for him. You want to make life tough on every quarterback, but Diego Pavia especially because he is a little bit smaller and the running game is a big part of his game. So you want to make him think twice before, running past the line of scrimmage. We talked about it a little bit, Alex. You said defense, I think continue that bend, don't break. It's okay. You're going to give up some explosive plays. Every team does. But, holding Vanderbilt to field goals is a key here for me. I think the offensive line just has to nut up and play ball. I think that there has been some communication issues. But at the same time, I've seen enough people that are credible that break down film that say, that play is kind of there. There's nothing, or the offensive line couldn't block 7 people like we've talked about.
And I think a key position to watch defensively for South Carolina this game is linebackers, just because Vanderbilt likes to do a whole lot of kind of pre-motion or pre-snap stuff, some eye candy type of stuff. kind of I actually asked Clayton White about this today, like how key eye discipline and assignment football is in this one. And I wonder if the speed of those linebackers is something that's going to really help them in this game because of what Vanderbilt likes to do from an option standpoint and things like that. So I think, the linebackers, Fred Johnson, Justin Okoronkwo, Sean Murphy, are going to be ones to watch because I think if they can do their job the way, that they need to, I think that's going to allow for South Carolina to potentially get Vanderbilt in some of those third and longs to let Dylan Stewart or Brian Thomas go and rush the passer and, maybe see if they can draw penalties like Robbie was talking about how they're having some issues there at tackle doing that.
Yeah, that was a really good nugget. That's not something I picked up and watching the game, and I watched the replay of it, the accelerated one, so it was like an hour. I wasn't watching for every penalty, but that was a good nugget there. Along with my offensive line needs to nut up. You have to have some creative play calling. We've talked about it. The offensive line hasn't been done favors. Alex, I really think for the life of me, you're going to see something different this weekend. I think you're going to see formations, wide sets, opportunities to create passing lanes, rushing lanes that you just haven't seen so far. And maybe I'm completely off base. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it is going to be vanilla all season and, basic play calls. That's not rational.
It just doesn't feel like they can do what they did against South Carolina State and have much success at all because South Carolina State really limited what they were able to do. I think the run game is where you really need to see a little more creativity. They're just from some outside runs because it kind of just feels like majority of their runs are going right up the middle. And again, now I think getting Lenora Sellers involved in a run game because what he can do there. I mean, he can make 5-yard runs into big explosive plays. Then I just think again that helps them get into some rhythm from a passing standpoint too. So that's what one of the things I mentioned that's kind of on my list to watch this week to see what the run game looks like, not only from a production standpoint, but just kind of a philosophy and play calling standpoint.
Yeah, I haven't looked at the point spread since yesterday. I know that the game opened up South Carolina anywhere from 7.5 to 8.5 points. Last I saw, the Gamecocks were 5.5-point favorites.
FanDuel has it 4.5 right now. DraftKings at 4.
Okay, so it's definitely dropping. I remember when Alex told me Sunday night that the line was 7.5, 8.5. I immediately said I would bet Vanderbilt in that situation. There's just too many points, and you have the hook, you have everything there.
I imagine it's going to settle around 5, 4.5 or 5 somewhere. I think we're kind of getting to that point right now. Maybe you can get into that 3.5, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, really, defensive players don't move the needle too much on the point spread. So even with these injury reports, and as light as it is, that number is probably pretty close to settling, Alex. Yeah, I could see 3.5 even. I don't think it's going to dip below 3. Even though I said on Sunday night I'd have it as a Gamecocks 1.5 if I was setting the line there. But Vegas knows what they're doing. Alex, it's time for us to give our predictions on this game. I'll go first. As I mentioned earlier, I could very well see this game ending in a last-second field goal either way, or a last-minute touchdown either way. But when I go back and look at this game and see where the point spread started, see where it's dropping, I think there's just a lot of money coming in on Vanderbilt to drop that line, and I think that can be a little bit of a prisoner of the moment type thing. South Carolina is not coming off a great 2 games. I thought Virginia Tech was fine for season opening game. Honestly, South Carolina State was very ugly, very not pretty, but there was a 2-hour rain delay. They were constantly starting, behind the sticks or deep in their own territory. And I will die on this hill too, Alex. I think for the life of me, after that rain delay and after the start of that game and not being able to put up points immediately, you're going in, not scoring in the first quarter of the game, essentially. The coaches just wanted to get the win and get the heck out. I firmly believe that. It was like, we're going to run these plays. We're going to kill the clock. We don't want injuries. I think there's a lot of they're not going to beat us type thing. And some coaches, you'll know they care about the point spread. James Franklin. You can always see him get more excited when Penn State covers the spread. It never fails. He will kick a last-second field goal to cover a spread, y'all. I'm telling you. But I don't know. I think Shane knows what the spread is. I don't think he cared about it. And that was a big spread, 42.5. That was going to be a big number to cover. They didn't want you to bet South Carolina on that one. So when I look at this game, Alex, I just still see it playing out similarly to last season. I think that South Carolina's defensive linebackers are really good. I think the secondary is good enough. And I think the South Carolina defense is going to give Vandy fits. I think they're going to get hits on Diego Pavia. I think that Williams-Brice Stadium is going to be electric Saturday night. 7:45. Are you kidding me? That's exactly what all the fans want. The student section is going to be rowdy. I think South Carolina opens up the playbook and looks much more like the first drive of the season than they have, basically since then. South Carolina has more talent. They should win this game. I think it's going to be a statement win for South Carolina. I think it's going to be a win where I'm going to say 24-13 for South Carolina, but I could very well see it being a 21-6 game halfway through the fourth quarter. That's how I feel about the game. Alex, your thoughts?
So you had 24-13. That's what you have?
24-13 is my final, with Vandy kicking a field goal or something or scoring a late touchdown.
Yeah, I'm very close. I had 24 as well. I went ahead and gave Vanderbilt 17. I think it's going to be it's a touchdown game, 24-17. I agree with a lot of your reads as to what you're saying. Like, from an offensive standpoint, that's the unit everybody's going to be. I think you kind of expect what you're going to get from the defense. Like, obviously it's going to be a challenge for the defense because Pavia, like they're really good in this system now. It's their second year in this system, and they execute at a high level. Just offensively, I think you just want to see Lenore Saros kind of get back to who he was, late last year in that Missouri game, and kind of on through that just from a run game standpoint, and just kind of let them air it out a little bit too. So I think offensively they kind of get some things figured out, kind of stay in that 20s range from a point perspective, just because Vanderbilt loves to control the ball and is really good at it and can limit possessions. But that's another key. You got to make the most of your possessions with the way Vanderbilt plays. But that's what I'm going with, 24-17 Carolina.
Yeah, I think Lenore's has already, Tony Morrell reported, I believe, that Lenore Sellers has asked for more carries, design runs per game. And Alex pointed that out earlier. He seems to play better when that happens. So, I mean, I literally could see a blowout, Alex. And I could see it both ways, honestly. If South Carolina doesn't get off the mat, but I could see it both ways. I probably lean more to South Carolina blowing Vanderbilt out than vice versa. And like I said, I'm going 24-13. Alex, you said 24-17?
Yep.
Okay. So, Gamecocks will have an opportunity to make it 3-0. As I said on the Big Spur the other day, it really doesn't matter how you get to 3-0. It doesn't matter how you get to 4-0. It doesn't matter how you get to 5-0. And people forget that. I think a lot of times people forget this because of fantasy football and the way the NFL has put such an emphasis on scoring, just like every professional sport, that it's still a 3-phase game. And 2 of the 3 phases for South Carolina, I think, are really, really, really good right now. And the offense has the potential to still be really good. If they could just put in a bottle what they did against Virginia Tech that first drive, I don't know how you stop South Carolina. So, Alex, we need to move on here now. It's time for our best bet segment. We don't have Justin on this weekend or this week. Justin will be on next week. But Alex, we both went. Let's see. I had a 3-2 lead through going into week 2. We both went 2-3 over the weekend. So I'm 5-5. You're 4-6. I'm keeping that 1-game lead. I'll take it just the way South Carolina can win ugly. I don't mind winning ugly.
I tell you, I don't think it was fair last week because you reminded me that we had best bets like 15 minutes before. So I'm taking that as not fair. This week I studied. I'm ready to go. I feel good.
Alex, man, I didn't do my picks till 15 minutes ahead either.
Hey, I need to use something.
Yeah, we were late because of me last week and this week. Golly, get your stuff together, Matt. All right. So I'm going to be finalizing these picks live. I have like 7 or 8 I'm looking at. The first one I'm going to take, Alex, is South Florida at Miami. Miami is an 18.5-point favorite. And this is yesterday. It's 17.5 now?
Yeah.
Okay. 17.5-point favorite. And the over-under set at 56.5 last I saw. So under over 56.5. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. I'm taking South Florida plus a 17.5 again, just like I did last week. Give me South Florida and maybe sprinkle on the money line.
I actually picked the same game, but I'm going the whole other way. I'm going Miami to cover the 17 and a half, 18 and a half, whatever we're going with.
Oh, okay. Well, let me put this in here. Alex has Miami covering. So it's 17 and a half. So that's the pick. All right. My next game, I am heading over to South Bend, Indiana for Texas A&M and Notre Dame. I did these lines yesterday. So, Alex, if I'm wrong on the line, tell me.
Okay.
I have it Notre Dame minus 6.5, over under at 50.5.
Yeah, 6.5 right now. Yep.
Give me A&M plus 6.5. We just don't know what Notre Dame is yet, and I think A&M is a pretty good team. I'll take the 6.5. I think it's going to be a field goal game.
I thought about that one. Texas A&M's run defense is scaring me a little bit, and with what Notre Dame has with Jeremiah Love and those guys, it scared me off a little bit. But I can see it though.
Okay, what's your next pick?
Well, I lost it. Here we go. I have going to Tuscaloosa for Wisconsin, Alabama. Alabama's 3.5. They're going to cover.
Okay.
I don't think Wisconsin is all that good this year. I think they have their issues, and Alabama put up some points last week. I know it was UL Monroe, but I think they're just trying to. I think they're still trying to recover from that week one and trying to score as many points as they can. So I'm going Alabama cover that. I think it's a late cover. They win by 28 or so.
Okay, I don't hate that. Oh man, my next pick, heading up to Rocky Top for Georgia at Tennessee. Last I saw, Georgia was a 3.5 point favorite, over under 50.5. Is survey still good, Alex?
I'm pulling it up. Well, that's Georgia Tech. Georgia is 3.5.
All right.
FanDuel has 4.5.
Give me Tennessee 3.5. You can keep your extra point, Alex. Tennessee is going to win straight up.
I don't know what to think about this game because, Georgia's kind of young. We haven't seen Gunner. I think Tennessee is going to make Gunner start to beat them with his arm. I think that's, I kind of like some of the things we've seen from Joey Aguilar so far and those wide receivers. I would not be one bit surprised if you're right and Tennessee wins this game.
All right, what's next for Mr. Jones?
Going to Atlanta and Clemson and Georgia Tech game. I'm not going to mess with the point spread, but I'm going to go with the over-under is 52.5. I'm going to go under in that. It's a lot of points for I still think Clemson has a pretty decent defense, and Haynes King is beat up. I think he's going to play, but so he's beat up, so I'm going to go under. I think Clemson's still going to win that game, but I'm going under.
Yeah, that line opened up at Clemson minus 10, Clemson minus 9.5 as well.
It's down to 2.5 right now.
Down to 2.5. Wow.
DraftKings has 3, FanDuel 2.5.
All right, so my next pick, I'm going to my buddy Lane Kiffin, Arkansas at Ole Miss. The last I saw, Alex, was Ole Miss was a 7.5 point favorite, over under at 62.5.
7.5 and 61.5. Yeah.
61.5. Well, I was going to take under 62.5. Under 61.5 doesn't scare me. I think Ole Miss wins this game something like 28-10. So I'll take the under.
Yeah, I still think there's still with Arkansas. Really, kind of both of these teams, we don't know what they are. Ole Miss had a little bit of struggles with Arkansas in that game, and Arkansas really hadn't played anybody yet. So we'll learn a lot about both of these teams. But I think I'd lean the same way you are right now on that.
Oh, wow. I feel good about that. All right. How many more do you have?
Wait, hold on. You took Ole Miss to cover,
yeah, you
right?
got 2 more.
You took Ole Miss to cover, didn't you?
No. I took the under 61.5.
Okay, so I just realized I had that same game. I have Ole Miss covering. Yeah.
Okay, so you got Ole Miss minus the 7.5.
Yes.
All right. We'll see what happens there. My last pick. Man, I thought about Clemson and Georgia Tech. I thought about Florida and LSU. I thought about Oklahoma and Temple. And if I was a brave man, I would pick either the Clemson and Georgia Tech game or the Florida at LSU game. but I'm not going to be a brave man tonight. I'm tired. It's late. I'm going Oklahoma minus 24.5 against Temple with an over-under set at 51.5. I don't know if that line's moved or not, but that's what I'm taking.
I thought about that exact same thing. I looked at that, but that was going to be my last one, but I've ended up going with the Florida LSU. I think 7.5 right now for LSU, and they're covering that.
LSU minus 7.5. Yeah, that's been some line movement, man, because I had that at minus 9.5 yesterday. So we got some Florida money coming in there. I don't mind that, Alex, at all. And
7.5 right now, 48.5 over and under.
Yeah, because I still have questions about LSU's defense. Because I mean they gave up some points this past weekend, but then I'm not sure how good Clemson's offense is right now. So I don't know if I give credit yet.
Yeah, and with Florida, in these past are really like last year, like you saw them bounce back when Billy Napier really needed to win. Like I don't know if that's going to happen this year. I could be completely wrong because Florida still has some talent, but I don't know. It just kind of feels a little bit different this year. Like they need Lagway to get going, and not sure it's going to be in this game because LSU's defense is really good. Like they got a solid defense, and I think LSU's going to do enough offensively to cover that.
All right. Well, Alex, we'll see what the standings hold next week after 15 games.
I'll be in the lead.
What's that?
I'll be in the lead.
I believe it. Again, when we pick these games, if we actually threw real money on it, we'd tell you. We don't.
Yeah,
if we've ever done it, it's been like $5 just between the two of us. So I mean, we're having fun with this. It's fun to track. We love if you guys want to play along with us. But if you are going to bet on these games, do it responsibly. Don't bet money you can't afford to lose. All that jazz. Make it fun. So make it fun. Go ahead and take Georgia Tech money line against Clemson. So have a fun weekend if that one hits. But Alex, anything else we need to get off our chest before we call it a night?
No, I think we've got it all. That was a great episode. I really appreciate Robbie coming on. That was a lot of great insight we got from him from all three phases of Vanderbilt and things like that. But really appreciate him coming on. It was another great show leading into Saturday.
Yep. Well, Gamecocks kick off against Vanderbilt at 7:45 Williams-Brice Stadium. If you can get out there, go. I think it's going to be a wild first night. Like I said, I think the Gamecocks win. And with that being said, we will be back Sunday night at 7. So we'll be here to recap the game, good, bad. We'll tell you the truth. We'll tell you what we saw. Alex will talk about Shane's press conferences and then the Sunday night telecast, any injuries, that kind of stuff we'll talk about then. And then before you know it, we'll be talking about Missouri, another night game in about a week and a half. But y'all, thank you so much for being a part of this show tonight. When you listen or you watch, you give us the most valuable thing you have, which is your time. It never goes underappreciated. And we thank y'all. We hope you all have a great rest of the evening, a great rest of the week, and go Cox on Saturday. See y'all soon. Bye, everybody.